Hi, this is Jim Strohecker, CEO of Well People, and this is our Creating Wellbeing webinar, Effective Professional Applications of the Wellness Inventory Program. And I would like to welcome you all to the call today. And what we're going to be doing is we're going to explore the foundations of our whole person model, the 12-dimensional wellness wheel, which I'm sure you're familiar with. We'll have an overview and a live demo of the Wellness Inventory program. We'll look at some of the professional applications of the Wellness Inventory, which are quite varied. And then at the end, we'll touch upon our Wellness Inventory certification training. And I always like to start with a question. What is wellness? It may seem to be really obvious, but there's some real major distinctions in how the term is used. So I'll just give you a crash course. The real question is, what lens are we looking through when we use the word wellness? Are we looking through the lens of a whole person model or the lens of a disease model? I'll explain what I mean. You may be familiar with the famous definition of health from the World Health Organization from 1948. And you'll notice that it's in two parts. The first part is the whole person definition. Health is a state of complete physical, mental, and social well-being. And they could have put a period there. But they needed to add the caveat, which is like the disease model view of health, and not merely the absence of disease and infirmity. Because historically in healthcare and also just culturally, we've been led to believe that the absence of illness is health. So if we don't have signs or symptoms, we're healthy. And yes, you could say you're healthy because you're not sick, but it's a pretty low bar. So let's look a little bit more deeply into this. There was a very famous doctor and philosopher, Dr. Howard Dunn, who was the chief of the National Office of Vital Statistics in the 1950s. And he was also very inspired by that definition. He was also a consultant for the World Health Organization. And he was the creator or the developer of the entire field of vital statistics. So he was quite a deep thinker. And he always pondered, why do we doctors only talk about levels of disease? Why is no one talking about levels of health? And so finally he decided to develop this new wellness theory, high-level wellness. Really the first time the term had ever been used in this sort of context professionally. And he wrote a book called High Level Wellness in 1961, and I pulled this from the first chapter. And this, I think this is my favorite definition of wellness. I think it's the most powerful and the deepest. High-level wellness is an integrated method of functioning which is oriented towards maximizing the potential of which the individual is capable. And if you look at the cover of his book, you'll see three concentric circles. And in Dunn's whole person systems model of high-level wellness, those circles represented body, mind, and spirit. So here we have a profound new model, a whole person model of high-level wellness. And if we move forward about 10 years, we see the impact. Dr. John Travis, one of the founders of the modern wellness movement in the 1970s, was completing his residency in preventive medicine and working as an officer in the U.S. Public Health Service. And while he was at Johns Hopkins, he was also a protege of Dr. Lewis Robbins, who was the creator of the first health risk appraisal or assessment, or also called HRAs. So Travis was in really good company, and he could have gone almost any direction he wanted to in public health. But one day he came across Dr. Dunn's book, High Level Wellness, and he had felt that something was missing in the public health model. And this new wellness, high-level wellness concept really fired his imagination. So when he completed his residency at Johns Hopkins, he opened the first wellness center in the U.S. And this was a place where, in 1975, and this was a place where people came to learn to be well. There was no treatment, and it was all one-on-one facilitation, groups and workshops. They worked with the public, and they also worked with helping professionals. And they actually helped to pioneer work around helping professional burnout. They create, for the one-on-one facilitation process, which was actually one of the forerunners of modern coaching, it was purely a person-centered process where the individual was looked at being creative, resourceful, and whole. And Dr. Travis created the wellness inventory, which was the first ever wellness assessment, and it was a whole person model. And interestingly, Dan Rather came with 60 Minutes to do a piece on Dr. Travis in 1979, and he felt that he had to start the piece by saying, wellness. Now, there's a term you don't hear too often these days. And it just lets you know that just 40 years ago, you sort of had to explain this new term, knowing that most people had never heard it. And here's a copy of Dr. Travis's Wellness Workbook, which captured what they did at the center. And it's one of the foundational and classic fields in all of wellness. And before we get into the wellness inventory, I think it's important to share three very primary wellness concepts. The first is the illness-wellness continuum. And this was developed by Dr. Travis in 1972, so you may be familiar with it. You may have seen it in a healthcare textbook. You might have seen it in a presentation somewhere. And it's really simple. You see, on going to the left, we're moving to premature death through signs, symptoms, and then disability, which is really simply referring to as you're getting more and more ill, you're losing ability to function. On the other hand, you see it moving towards higher level wellness. And in the center, you see this neutral point. And that's what, in the World Health Organization, was saying health is more than the absence of illness. That neutral point sort of represents what we call health. Like, you're not sick, you're well. And then you see the treatment paradigm. The treatment paradigm, or the medical model, is designed to restore ability, remove signs, remove symptoms, and get you to this neutral point. And then you see on the high-level wellness side, moving from awareness, education, and growth to higher levels of wellness. At first glance, one might think, you get yourself to the neutral point, then you can start practicing wellness. And what Travis recognized in the real world right away, that was absolutely untrue. He was working with people who had chronic and life-threatening illnesses. There was one patient who had terminal cancer who had come to learn how to die well. And there were people in all stages of poor, fair, good, or excellent health. And they recognized that the one commonality was this focus on wellness. And if you look at the wellness paradigm, one of the things that Travis recognized is that it doesn't matter where you are, and that because for everyone, every day, there are various choices that we make in the context in our lives that can either enhance our personal wellness or well-being or detract from it. And if we're doing things that detract from our well-being over a continuous period of time, we'll definitely see ourselves sliding to the left. We may start getting signs or symptoms. We may become ill. We may become exhausted. On the other hand, if we choose activity, if we make the choices that we recognize enhance our well-being, we begin to develop sort of a pattern and a habit and a process of beginning to orient ourselves to high-level wellness, what I would like to call developing a wellness mindset, so that it's easier and easier for us to make the positive, proactive choices because we value what that does for us. So this is really the essence of the illness-wellness continuum, I think, is developing our ability to see the importance of taking care of ourselves, being self-responsible, developing a self-care strategy, and managing our sort of moment-to-moment small choices and wellness, and orient ourselves and moving towards high-level wellness. The second model is really simple. It's the iceberg model of health. So our state of health is like the tip of an iceberg. It's what you can observe. It's what you can measure. But if we want to understand how we got there, we really need to look beneath the surface. And that's exactly what we're doing with the Wellness Inventory program. We're beginning to explore our lifestyle, our behavior, our psychological and motivational aspects, as well as our emotional, and also looking at the spiritual, the being, and the meaning realm. And again, we're doing this through the third model, which is formally called the Wellness Energy System. And this is our 12-dimensional wellness wheel. It's called the Wellness Energy System. We refer to it as 12 core life processes and often refer to it as the human operating system. Because you'll notice that these are all life processes that we're doing on a daily basis. And if you look at the first, self-responsibility and love, you really can see that as a context in which this all happens, whether it thrives or whether it sort of dies on the vine, so to speak. Because if we have a sense of responsibility for our own selves, many of us are very responsible about other things, our jobs, our careers, our families, and we put ourselves on our needs last. And we may feel very heroic about that, but it's sort of ironic because if we don't take care of ourselves, if we don't have any gas in the tank, we really can't perform at an optimal level. So that those that are dependent upon us, or our job that is dependent upon us, at some point we're going to cease to be able to function at that same high level or to maintain that. And if we don't have a sense of self-compassion and consideration for ourselves, if we don't have a healthy self-regard and love for ourselves, it's unlikely that we're going to feel that it's important enough to practice self-care and to really take care of ourselves. And all of this helps to develop that wellness mindset that makes it much easier to navigate through our lives. But now if we look at all of the other dimensions, most fundamentally breathing, the first thing we do when we come into this planet, the last thing we do when we leave, and this is probably the most powerful way. Not only do we bring energy into our system, but also that we can internally self-manage our own stress and resilience levels. Sensing, how we sense through our five major senses, how externally how we can sense with our internal senses internally, our situational awareness. Very profound, very powerful in terms of how it affects us. But like breathing and the other dimensions, these tend to be off our radar. We're sort of on autopilot. We breathe, we sense, but we're not really aware that we're doing that because it's autonomic. Eating, very similar. We may be more aware of how we eat, but we may not actually do what we think we should be doing. But this is a second way which we can really power our system. Breathing and eating are really the two most powerful ways that we can bring energy in our system on a daily basis. And sensing through sensory awareness and also through various frequencies that we're getting, like from the sun and from light and heat, really also help to bring in energy. Then we get to the dimensions where we're primarily outputting energy, moving, feeling or affect, thinking or cognition, playing and working, the balance of not just work-life, but the balance of work and play in our lives. And when we get stressed and we get pushed too hard, too many projects, it becomes work, 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 and play begins to slip away. And play is very magical and spontaneous, and it's something that really helps to recharge us when we're doing the things we really love to do with the people we really love to do it with. Communicating, so important. And we can see how poor or negative or misguided communication can have a big impact not only on our own personal well-being, but the well-being of those around us. Intimacy. Here we talk about 12 different types of human intimacy, which expands the range of intimacy that we think is possible. So it goes way beyond what people normally would connote as sexual intimacy into different types of intimacy of shared experience, shared values, shared activities with friends, families, colleagues, significant others. Finding meaning. Philosophers talk about humankind as the meaning-seeking creature. And that's so important and power in our lives. And we know when we have a sense of meaning, really it's almost as if nothing can stop us. And we're really motivated and we have great power in our lives. When we don't have a sense of meaning in our lives, we can tend to sort of fluctuate and wander, and it creates challenges and problems for us. Finally, the transcending dimension deals with the overcoming of obstacles. It deals with, in the parlance of positive psychology, being in a flow state, or being in the zone. The work of Mikhail Csikszentmihalyi. And finally, the spiritual dimension of our lives. So you can see that this really covers so many of the basic processes that we experience as human beings. And if these are on autopilot, if we just begin to gain a little bit more awareness so we can increase our efficacy and activate more of our potential, much like someone who might be very emotionally unexpressive but also not feel very literate with regards to what we call emotional intelligence. So maybe they enroll in an emotional intelligence webinar, and they walk out with an expanded skill set that brings more emotional resilience and more emotional intelligence to their life. And that's only going to build, only going to help. So imagine that in each of these dimensions, each of these dimensions have various awarenesses, processes, self-care practices, and knowledge that can help us to expand our ability in those areas, which then impact the whole wheel. And so when we're talking about increasing energy input so that we have gas in the tank, so we really have more power to move through our lives, and moderating our energy output intelligently, knowing where to put our boundaries, knowing when, because we all know what it's like when we're at the computer and we're working on a project, and it's like, oh, yes, you're running on fumes, but you got to get this done, or you don't want to have to go to bed and deal with it in the morning, and you just keep pushing until you're just burnt. And so we really need that's part of the wellness mindset and self-care, is knowing our boundaries, knowing how to take care of ourselves so we maintain a higher energy level and we don't deplete our energy level, because we know when that happens, it takes a while to bounce back. We also refer to this as 12 core life processes, because you really can look at all these life processes and focus on them in that way and really improve your capacity in these areas. And one of the things that's really fascinating is that we discovered very quickly that all of these dimensions are interconnected and they all influence each other. So, for example, let's say we're in a classroom and we want to introduce students to the power of breathing. So we're going to do an introductory, 3 to 5 minute breath awareness exercise. So at the end, we ask people to raise their hands and, what did you experience? And one person might raise their hand and say, wow, my sensory awareness has really increased. I hear more, I see more, my situational awareness is greater, and I'm really sort of blown away. And then the next person raises their hand and says, oh, geez, I've been so anxious for the last couple of weeks, and it's just been eating away at me. But as we continue to breathe, I begin to notice that this knot of anxiety was beginning to sort of melt and just let go. And now I feel very calm and emotionally stable, and I can't remember the last time I felt this peaceful. And then another student raises their hand and says, oh my goodness, I've been lost in so much negative thinking and worry this last week, and I can't sleep at night. I just stare at the ceiling, and my brain won't turn off. But as I continued to breathe, my thoughts became slower, and slower. Slowed down the number of thoughts. And pretty soon I just felt very centered, very peaceful, but very focused. And this is a brand new experience for me. And we could continue around the wheel, but you sort of get the idea that, and like with the thinking, it's almost like a mathematical equation. When the breath is calm, the mind is calm. It's just that simple. And that's why breathing has been used to calm and focus the mind for millennia in yoga, meditation, Tai Chi, Qigong, martial arts, so many different practices to aid us. But the upshot of this is that here we have one simple practice, doesn't cost you anything, and you're getting all these different positive side effects in other different dimensions. We refer to this now as the holographic growth process, where small steps impact the whole. And what's important about that from a personal level is that for your clients, your students, your patients, yourselves, it helps to maximize your motivation to pursue positive self-care practices. And it makes it easier for you to develop a wellness mindset when you see how sort of magically all this works, how magnificent the human operating system is, how just doing one simple process helps to create so much internal self-regulation around the wheel. And so that's one of the reasons we refer to it as the human operating system. And here you are in the center of the operating system. And generally, the way we've been raised, particularly earlier generations, we had a much less dynamic and view of ourselves. I sometimes joke and say we sort of thought of ourselves as a body carrying around a brain and then also had some troublesome emotions which we just stuffed away because they were inconvenient and didn't have much more of a concept of ourselves and our complexity. But this gives us a much more beautiful and complex view of just really the beauty of how we operate as whole human beings. So just like you would upgrade your iPhone if you were getting a prompt and knew that some of your apps weren't working really well, in the same way we can upgrade our internal operating system. We can maximize our own potential to function effectively and to be able to live fully. So in our whole person model, everything is connected. And so now let's get into the wellness inventory itself. And I'll start with this quote from the former Stanford Research Institute, SRI International. The wellness inventory is a foundational tool for wellness development. So how do we develop wellness? Well, the wellness inventory, it's a dynamic whole person assessment and life balance program. Sometimes we refer to it as a whole person well-being program. It helps to support people in their journey to improve personal well-being by creating a context for a deeper engagement in their own wellness and providing a framework for creating and sustaining a culture of well-being. And it's really designed to maximize our potential for optimal living. So let's look at some of the key features of the program. We'll start with the home page, which we'll get back to in just a moment, but here you see the wheel, personalized photos, the key features on the left. And the program starts with the classic wellness inventory assessment. It's a whole person assessment for all 12 dimensions, and there's 10 statements for each dimension, so 120 statements total. There's 2 questions for each, how true and how motivated to improve. So let's look at the first statement here, this is actually from the playing and working section. I enjoy and take time for spontaneous activities. So I'm asked, how true is that for me now in this present time, not 6 months ago, or not on my best day, on a Likert scale of 0 to 10. So I might say, so many projects going on right now, can't really see the end of the road. I don't really feel particularly spontaneous. I'm really on autopilot. And, I give myself a 2 or a 3. And then we come to the really important question, how motivated am I to improve now or in the next 30 days? So is this an immediate priority for me? And I might say, well, I just don't see I don't see the end of all of this. I just don't have the energy or bandwidth to try to do this. And this is not necessarily a real skill of mine. So I think maybe I'll save that. Something I'd like to get better at, but that might be something I save for later. So I give myself a 1 or a 2 or a 3, maybe a 4. But on the other hand, let's say that this is something I really love to do, be spontaneous, and I sort of consider it to be one of my signature strengths. So I might say, well, I really can see how if I found a way to weave in more spontaneity, how it could ease up some of the challenges and the problems I'm having right now and the stresses, and it might actually give me more energy and so sort of help me to recalibrate and reset so I can come back fresh. So maybe I give myself an 8 or a 9 or a 10 if I'm really motivated. So you can sort of see the difference here because you have like what's happening with me real time and truly how motivated am I to improve, and that can be different for the same person at different times. 2 people could be have low scores and have completely different motivations. So it's all completely open, which is beautiful because that allows for the shift and the change to take place. And one of the things you'll notice is that all of these statements are positive and proactive wellness behaviors, attitudes, beliefs. This isn't an interrogation about all the things you're doing wrong. It's very uplifting. And this is sort of what it might look like as you're going through. And one of the beauties of the assessment is that in addition to assessing, it stimulates awareness of new possibilities for improvement. When you've completed the assessment, the first thing you see is your personal wellness profile. And again, this is a snapshot of your current level of well-being from a whole person perspective, but it's a snapshot in time. And you may be under specific stresses at this time or at this time period that are impacting the expression of your wheel, because one of the things we find is that stressors and challenges tend to diminish the expression of the different, if they're chronic, tend to diminish the expression of the wheel and all the different dimensions, and sometimes some more than others. So you're getting a picture of like, what are my strengths, like finding, meaning, transcending, and sensing. These are all strong here. And that seems to be true with how I see myself. And now I can sort of see some strengths that maybe I can lean into to use to help improve other areas or help me develop strategies that can help me in other areas. Then I see some of the smaller areas of the wheel that are like maybe the next stage down, and then I see some that are much smaller than that. So again, we're beginning to sort of get a picture like, am I firing on all 12 cylinders? Where am I strong? What are some of the areas I'm challenged? And there's many reasons why things could be challenged. It could be stressors. It could be that those are not areas that have really been developed. And maybe something that even comes from cultural background or family background. And one of the beauties of the program is that you're able to track your personal progress throughout the year in all 12 dimensions. The second thing you see is the motivation profile. And all that's important here are the strongest motivations, because what we're looking for is the lowest hanging fruit and looking at where do you have the highest readiness for change and motivation to improve. Because this is where you're going to have an individual is going to have the most success. So it really helps to whoever's using the wellness inventory to be able to identify, and just by going through the assessment with the well-being and motivation profiles, it really sort of catapults everyone forward in terms of the time it would take to get that sort of clarity, particularly in a coaching situation. And so once you've completed and received the scores, the individual goes to the home page so they can see their home page for the first time, and they're going to be prompted to personalize it with a personalized photo and quote, and then they can dive right in, and usually the first thing that someone does is to start to create an action step. And you have two choices. If you know exactly what you want to do, you can actually just go ahead and click on Create Action Step Now. But for many of us, we're not really clear at this point. We'd like a little bit more support. So we have the Virtual Coach Help, which is an automated program with 5 great coaching questions that help you get clear on what you want to improve and get support in creating your action step. So by the time you get to the end and read everything you've written, in response, you're able to create your action step. So here's an example. Take a 15-minute morning walk 3 days a week for someone who is finding that the stress of their life has sort of shifted their patterns, and they're not getting much physical activity right now, and they want to do something. They want to be able to do something incremental, a small step to sort of get them started. So here we have. Then they can create a personal email reminder. Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 6 a.m., I'm going to get an email saying take morning walk. So this is a trigger to the action step and supports motivation, accountability, and success. There's also a progress tracker. Again, a Likert scale of 0 to 10. What's my satisfaction with my progress on my action steps? And when there's a challenge, and sometimes we might, as the want of many of us here, and particularly in the U.S., we tend to think bigger is better, so we've got to do something really significant. I can't just take a morning walk. I've got to run 5K. I've got to train for a marathon. I've got to go to the gym 5 days a week. I've got to do something that people will say, oh, he's serious or she's serious. So here, take an hour morning walk 7 days a week. Maybe someone read in the paper that a new study says that 1 hour of walking, brisk walking every day improves cognitive and cardiovascular health. So they're like, oh, I'm all in. But now they're not really thinking, can I do that? Do I have an hour in the morning? Am I motivated? Do I like walking? Am I motivated to do that? But this is the type of thing we do. So when we create an action step that's too big and we're not making progress, we're invited to check out the virtual coach. And we have a SMART step process that imports the action step, asks 3 great questions, and then you're able to hone it each successive time. So by the time you get to the end, you might have a new action step, like take a 20-minute morning walk, 2 or 3 or 4 days a week, depending upon the person. And all of this is oriented towards creating successes, which we really define as successfully integrating an action step or an activity into your daily life, and to help you to even further develop that wellness mindset. It really helps to support your personal well-being. So the wellness inventory is really designed also to maximize your personal potential. So you have the assessment, which is like the awareness raiser. The part of the program is the action plan, where the rubber meets the road. But there's also an educational experiential aspect to allow you to maximize your potential by exploring the 12 dimensions of wellness in your own life. And we refer to this as learn, experience, reflect, reassess. And this is also used a lot in workshops and particularly in college classes. Learn is to go to the study center, where you can access the 10 statements from the assessment for all 12 dimensions, and each of them links to a short half-page or full-page commentary. So I enjoy take time for spontaneous activities, and here's a little commentary. So if you're not sure of the value of that, you can read it and you learn more. And you're beginning to learn more about each of the 12 dimensions of wellness and becoming more grounded. Then you're able to go to the resource center, which again has all 12 dimensions and has resources for all 12 dimensions. And our favorite are the self-care practices, which is the first tab. So you can select a self-care practice to try out, to experience that particular dimension of wellness, and also to see if you can enhance your experience of that dimension. The third thing you do is to go to the wellness journal, select plain and working in this case, and then write a short journal entry. What's my experience? What new insights do I have? What challenges have I had on my wellness journey around playing and working in this case? And finally, you can go back to the assessment icon and reassess, in this case, the playing and working dimension by itself. Just takes a couple of minutes, and now you're able to compare that with the last time you took the assessment for that dimension. So it's a wonderful way to be able to focus on a specific dimension and get all four of these components for real integrated learning. And also, this process, by enhancing your capacities in the different dimensions, really helps you create successes with your action steps as well, and also helps to support your personal well-being and improve all of the dimensions. So let's do a quick demo of the Wellness Inventory Program. Okay, so here we are in the Wellness Inventory, and I've demoed a good bit of this through the PowerPoint, but I'll just give a quick overview here. So on the left here, you have the icon. So this is where you can access the assessment, and you can access each of the 12 dimensions. And this was the last thing you did in that last piece. So as a matter of fact, let me just start there. So if we're going to learn, we go to the Study Center. And let's say we're focusing on playing and working. So I enjoy and take time for spontaneous activities. I click on that, and I can see the commentary. Now I want to go to the Resource Center and find a self-care practice on playing and working. So maybe I want to do through the eyes of a child, and I do that self-care practice. Then I go to the journal, and I can select playing and working, and write down my thoughts and observations and insights and experiences about this dimension so far. And then after I've done those three, I go back here, click on playing and working, and complete the assessment. And then go all to and hit save section. Then I can see compare my scores. So that's how those four can be used in conjunction. But you also can use any of these features, obviously independently. And some people may be big into the Study Center. Some people maybe want to explore resources. Some people may want to do primarily self-care practice. Some people may be really heavily into journaling, and that would be one of the predominant activities. Others may want to check the progress tracker to see the progress in their action steps, and then be able to see their progress for each of the 12 dimensions for the last 2 times, whether it was a full assessment or an individual assessment. They can see how they're doing. And there's also a tab here to compare 2 full assessments, pre and post, and see the percentage of change. Here's a virtual coach where you can see the focus process and the questions, and also get into the SMART step and the support process. And another way to get the SMART step process, if I'm working on an action step, is just to click on the little icon here for coaching and select the SMART step process. And you'll notice that it imports the action step. I get asked 3 questions, and I keep editing it as I go. So people can really learn a lot about behavior change and learn a lot about themselves and their own self-care and how they can develop their own wellness mindset in a way that's really meaningful to them. And I'll just show you quickly the action plan. So here we have 3 action steps. So this had been created. Now we're tracking the progress here. So let's say the person is working on this particular action step every day, and over the weeks they're improving. Then they travel, and their son gets sick, and They may fall back a little bit, and then they get back on track. But if it's the right step, and you can continue to tweak the steps, because you really want something that again, what we call a success, something you can successfully integrate and sustain in your life. So it doesn't matter whether it's a 1 minute walk or a 5 minute walk or a 10-minute walk, as long as you're doing it. And we find that with these small steps, you feel so good about yourself when you're realizing that you're choosing to do a lot of proactive wellness activities that aren't knocking you out and killing all your time, but enhancing your ability to perform and live fully. So when you get to the point where you say, well, I'm a 10 out of 10, I'm doing it every week like clockwork, I can't wait to get out the door in the morning, I've made friends, I have so much fun, just being out in the sunshine, the fresh air, looking at the beautiful trees and the forest and listening to the birds and looking at the flowers. It's springtime. It's really, I watch my sensory awareness. I watch my breath. I notice my thoughts slow down. My emotional state improves. So this is really a feast for me. So now you say, well, I really don't need an action step, and I don't need reminders anymore, so I can add this to my successes. So when I do that, it falls off and goes on to successes. So here it is. And now I have a growing list of successes that I can sort of give myself some kudos and acknowledgement and really appreciate that I'm doing things that are enhancing my well-being. And I might even contemplate a little bit or journal about what I've noticed this has brought to my life, because that just anchors it in even more. But as the real world hits, sometimes you find that I've been traveling on business, and again, I've had some challenges at home, and it's just so much going on, and I can't remember the last time I got out for my morning walk, because my whole schedule has been crunched and thrown off, and you realize, you know what? I don't feel that it's right to keep it here on successes. I want to move it back to my action plan so I can get back on track. So with no guilt, I can just click on this. It drops off. It reappears here. And at this point, now I might edit it and say, well, let's start with 10 minutes 2 days a week until I can sort of get back to this. And so you can. That's another approach. Another approach, we have an archive. So we could archive it and go to the archive, and here you see it again. We basically say, geez, this is great, but I put a lot of work into this. It's important to me. I don't want to delete it, but I don't want to look at it every day on my action plan because I just, I don't feel it should be there. And then when I'm ready, I can click and reactivate it, and now it drops off here, goes back to my active action plan. So it's really wonderful how it allows for the expression of how we actually act as human beings in our behavior, and a very non-punishing way, and just really looking to support everybody in being their best self. So that's a quick overview of the Wellness Inventory program. And I'm going to go back now to complete the presentation on PowerPoint. So we'll have the professional applications of the Wellness Inventory programs and your practice or business, and end with a very short piece on the certification training. So professional applications. When we first started, we thought, well, this will be direct-to-consumer, and maybe workplace wellness programs will also take it, because this was like 2001. And back then, there wasn't a whole lot of talk about wellness. Most of it was like in corporate wellness, and almost all of that was disease model wellness. It was like all the challenges and activities and taking health risk appraisals, and it was all about how do we lower healthcare costs so you, the employee, aren't so expensive on our bottom line. And of course, it didn't really. Employees knew that, and they weren't particularly excited about participating. But we have many applications we've discovered over the years. The first being coaching, because we were one of the first groups to create our own wellness coach certification training in 2006. So we've been training coaches worldwide ever since. So that's one great application of the program. Some people like to use the Wellness Inventory as part of groups, workshops, or retreats. Or, of course, workplace wellness programs, college curriculum or student wellness, and that's actually a really growing area that we love to work in. Healthcare, hospitals, integrative medicine. There's been a little bit of a slow go just because healthcare is primarily disease model, and even in a lot of integrative health, there's still, it's beginning to change now, but for the longest time, it was still basically diagnose and treat. It was just that we're using more natural methods, so it was still very much disease model. Wellness centers, spas, and health clubs, topic-focused programs, which I'll get into. This is really exciting. We put a topic in the center of the wheel and approach that topic from a very unique whole-person perspective, because a lot of these topics have always been dealt with very conventionally from a more structured disease model approach. And other areas, executive wellness, burnout, and compassion fatigue are fantastic areas. But I'll start with wellness coaching. And this is where we support individuals in discovering their own solutions for enhanced health and well-being. I like to refer to the wellness inventory as a coach's best friend because it opens the door to the wellness coaching experience. So immediately the coaching client can have a real-time snapshot of how the client is living their life from a whole person perspective, and also what's their motivation to improve in each of these areas. And that's enhanced by the fact that you have this dynamic whole person model to explore the client's lives and 12 different points of entry to initiate the client's personal wellness journey. So it's not just sitting down and saying, well, do we want to talk about improving nutrition or physical activity or fitness or stress, which are like a much more sort of conventional, more disease model approach to dealing with wellness. And also a coach can create their own focus. So let's say a coach has a lot of training in resiliency and stress management, and they say, I really want to be a stress coach. That's how I want to be known. Then we can put stress in the center of the wheel, and they can really approach their clients and work with them with this sort of model where the client is looking at stress, not as the adrenal response or hormonal response or the saber-toothed tiger chasing the caveman type of thing we've seen 5 million times, but can really be organic and deeply meaningful to the individual. And from the client's perspective, it gives them a valuable tool to stay focused on their personal wellness between sessions. And from the coach's perspective, it also provides a framework to remain engaged with your clients throughout the year because you're able to communicate with them with a message for you feature so that even after the coaching is over, this can be part of the coaching package so that you have that contact. And then that way, when you're staying on their radar screen, when they run into a challenge, you might be the first person that they think of. And we provide coaches and all licensees with great tools, individual client reports, engagement reports, communication tools, aggregate types of tools. And then we come to the workshop series. And this is where we create a framework for the whole person experience and continual improvement. And the workshop series can be a series on all 12 dimensions, like maybe one a week. And people have been doing this since the early 80s using the Wellness Workbook and now using the Wellness Inventory. Or it might be that for a particular group, focusing on a few dimensions, like doing a workshop on breathing, eating, and moving, or a single dimension. Or the workshops could be topic specific. So it might focus on stress or sleep or weight or pain, putting pain in the center of the wheel. How is pain impacting my ability to function in each of these 12 dimensions? How might each of these 12 dimensions have some solution or support to help me better deal with my pain? Burnout, trauma, recovery. It's really endless. Brain health, heart health, diabetes, living well with cancer. we have a couple of our graduates, one at a hospital and one with their own program, working with cancer patients. Really appropriate today, COVID-19, or working from home, or sheltering in place, or social distancing. So that's a real quick overview of sort of how it can be used with workshops. Now, college wellness, using the wellness inventory and curriculum and student wellness programs to enhance performance, health, and well-being. And this is Colleen Harshbarger, who developed an award-winning program for WellWVU at West Virginia University. Back in 2014, she won the American College Health Association Award for Innovations for College Students. And the project was called Enhancing Wellbeing, which included a course and other student activities, and it was based on the wellness inventory and the 12 dimensions. And Colleen is a huge supporter of the wellness inventory, and among the many things that she's doing now, she's our primary level 1 certification trainer. This is the University of North Carolina, Wilmington. They have a required class for every student in the university called Physical Activity and Wellness, where the wellness inventory is the entire curriculum for the wellness half, and they've also expanded around the 12 dimensions with some other offerings. And even in the physical activity of the side of it, they put physical activity in the center of the wheel so that the students get an idea that physical activity is a whole person experience that benefits all 12 dimensions and really should be considered to be and planned to be a lifelong activity. And they also, the university has also published an article in the Journal of American College Health about their work. And in the college curriculum, there's generally a pre and post assessment at the beginning and end of the semester, and then each week students can focus on one of the 12 dimensions. And the model I showed you earlier is one way that can be done, but there's, so they can be doing reading, but also they may have other types of projects or papers or vision boards, video presentations. There's all sorts of cool things that they're doing in different colleges and universities. Here's some of the universities that are working with the wellness inventory. Here's some of the nursing schools. So we're really excited about how everything is developing in the college space. And then you come to workplace wellness, which was originally the main place where wellness took place. And this is supporting a culture of wellness to enhance employee health, performance, and well-being. And the wellness inventory can act as an organizing principle for workplace wellness by having a monthly focus on the 12 dimensions. And each month, the employees can participate in wellness activities that are related to the month's dimension. They might be a monthly workshop or webinar. And employees can be encouraged to create a small action step related to the dimension to really bring it home during that month. And if they would like, they can also use this formula for the employees to dive deeper throughout the month in that particular dimension. And again, within a workplace, for workshops and breakout groups and whatnot, there could be topic-specific, stress, sleep, burnout, various other types of workshops based on the wheel. And there's so much more, but I had to do a very quick little overview. But I'll close with an overview of our Wellness Inventory Certification Training. We have another webinar, Becoming a Wellness Coach, which goes into much more depth. But this will just be, probably 5 minutes. So our certification training, we have a 14-week Level 1 and a 14-week Level 2 training. Level 1, we like to refer to as 3 interwoven journeys: a personal journey, a coaching journey, and a business journey. And the personal journey is the baseline of the training, and this is where we focus on our own personal wellness journey and our own personal well-being, and we're integrating the knowledge of the 12-dimension wellness wheel, the holographic growth process, the wellness inventory program, and we're also coaching and being coached. We're also benefiting on a personal level from being coached throughout the 14 weeks. And then it's a great opportunity for personal growth, renewal, and transformation. when we're in the training as a student, we're in the center of the wheel because we're looking at our lives from a whole person perspective. I love this quote: this program goes deeper to the core of what it means to be human. Then we come to the coaching journey. This is where it's interwoven with the personal wellness journey, where we're learning to effectively support our clients' personal well-being through wellness coaching based on what we've learned in our own lives and professionally. And the baseline of our approach is learning how to be fully present for your client without judgment, developing deep listening skills, empathy skills to support deeper connection with your client, and that ability to truly hold space for another, compassionately for another human being. And we're also learning to use the whole person model in the Wellness Inventory program as a framework for effective coaching. And each week you're doing buddy coaching sessions with another class member as you're learning, and there's in-class practicums as well. And when your client is in the center of the wheel, when you're coaching, you're looking at your client's life from the perspective of the 12-dimension model. The business journey, this is where we're learning strategies for using the Wellness Inventory not only as a well-being platform, but as an engagement and communication platform. We're also looking at how to effectively apply the program in your practice or business. And we're exploring potential applications of the Wellness Inventory in coaching, groups, classes, workshops, special populations, and also whatever our students are focused on, what they would like to do. So briefly, let's just look at the training schedule and fees. We have 2 Level 1 trainings coming up. They're each 14 weeks. We have an option for the evening and an option for the daytime. Level 2, again, option for daytime and evening. And those are from January 12th and 13th to April 13th and 14th. So those are 14 weeks as well. You can find out more at certifywellness.com. And the tuition for Level 1 is $16.95. It's a live webinar-style teleclass. It's very highly interactive, 2 live instructors, weekly buddy coaching. When you've completed the training, you become a certified wellness inventory facilitator. And also, right now, we're having a special savings of $400 for the coronavirus impact. So it's only $12.95. That was expiring yesterday. I thought I had changed this. We're extending that to the end of the month. So you can save $400 on Level 1 if you register and pay in full by July 15th. You also can save $200 with 4 monthly payments. The Level 2 course, the Holographic Coaching Practicum, is 14 weeks, and it's $19.95, and again, it's delivered through our Start Meeting platform. Very, very highly interactive. Much less moving parts here. The focus is almost exclusively on coaching and enhancing your coaching core competencies and practice, and learning more coaching skills. There's a weekly 2-hour class and an hour of buddy coaching, and when you complete Level 2, you become a certified wellness inventory coach. The tuition for Level 1 and Level 2 are $36.90. We're having a $700 savings for payment in full, only $29.90 through July 31st, not the 15th. Or you can save $350 on a payment plan with 4 monthly payments. We are currently an NBC HWC approved transition program for our graduates to be able to sit for the National Board Certified Health and Wellness Coach exam. In 2021, we're moving to the permanent phase from the transition phase, so we're currently submitting our permanent phase approval. And we're also approved for continuing education for all National Board Certified Health and Wellness Coaches. So here is my contact info, and I'll stay on if there are any questions at this time. So I'll just invite you to either hit the Q&A button or the chat feature, or just speak up. And I'm going to go ahead and turn off the recording itself, so we won't record the Q&A. So you can reach me at jim@wellpeople.com or 530-615-4555, and we'll come right back and for the Q&A.